Hello my friends, Jacob's here one more time, and so are all of you. Oh, I'm so happy you are. Give me a hug. Come on, bring it in. Bring it in. Thank you for coming by, for pressing play, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, for doing all that you do. I hope that you're buckled up today. I hope that you're buckled up for this program. Once again, I've been working on this great show about the Antichrist, who the Antichrist is, what it means for you and for today. Amazing program, about an hour long, but yet here we are again, interrupted to bring you this breaking prophecy. Not sure if that's really the case, but I'll tell you, it's really exciting. When I know that I'm drawn to something and I start researching it again and again and again, and I know there's more to it, and I'm waiting on the Lord. I'm like going, Lord, what does it mean? Why am I so focused on a trident? You remember I talked about the trident on the last show? That's the on the flag. They got the trident, this one. Talked to you about the God of the Sea. Talked about Revelation. If you haven't seen the last program, you should catch up. Check it out here. Well, it's above me. But I knew there was more to it. I knew there was more to it because I got a bunch of people in the comment section telling me, hey, you know that ancient Sumerian god Marduk, you know, with the Anunnaki and Nibiru and everything? He was known as a trident. And I'm like, wow, very interesting. But it gets more interesting than this because this is tied into, believe it or not, I don't know how this happens. You tell me. It's tied into today, what the Pope's doing. The Pope's doing today. Hopefully I get the show out today. He's consecrating Russia, Ukraine, and like the rest of the world. I'm going to explain. It's based on an old prophecy, a doomsday prophecy that the Catholic Church holds about the sighting in Fatima, where they had these 3 children who supposedly the Virgin Mary appeared to them, told them a bunch of things. I'm going to explain it on the show, but I'm telling you, it's really a bunch of baloney. It's a bunch of baloney because at this point, I don't think God's listening to the Catholic Church. I'm going to explain that. Because this trident, believe it or not, brought me to a story in the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, about when Samuel comes. Oh, this is such a good show. I hope you're buckled up. You see, I find some things curious. I find it curious that I did this whole show about the Super Bowl, and I deduced from all those involved, the Rams were involved, and the Bengal Tigers, and the spiritual message to me was very beautiful. I even sort of, I don't want to say predicted, but said they were going to win by a very small number, like 3, because it was very symbolic. And they did. But what's even more interesting is the color of the helmets. You look at the color of the helmets of the Rams, and you look at the flag that has that trident. Very interesting. You got the yellow and the blue. A lot of people, because my last program was about the green horse of the apocalypse, right? The pale horse, which translates into green. A lot of people like to tell me, what do you get when you get yellow and blue? You take the 2 paints together, you mix them, what do you get? You get green. Interesting. The ram being very symbolic. Now this is what's even stranger, is that the ram in the Greek religion is Ares, the god of war. So, you know, me and a lot of other people were like, hey, aren't we entering into Ares? That happens on the equinox. I think it's March 20th. So you have all of this interest, all of these interesting events. The Rams win. We're entering into Aries, Pluto's return, which is connected. All of it's connected. All of it's amazing. But what about that Trident? And why is the Pope now going to consecrate Russia and the Ukraine? Why? What are they hoping to do? Okay, so a couple of you sent this to me, but I was already on it. I already had my feelers out there. Pope Francis asks all Catholics to take part in the consecration of Russia, Ukraine, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Okay, so let me explain something to you about Mary, okay? The Queen of Heaven, if you will. Mary goes by, that Queen of Heaven goes by a lot of other names. Ishtar being one of them. It's where we get Easter from. A lot of people don't know this. I know, it's shocking. Don't get too stressed out about it, because Paul explained that you don't got to worry about these things unless you're buying into all that pagan idolatry and you're worshiping that way. But the Vatican published the Pope's letter where he wrote to everybody about how we need to pray, and all of us come together, all the bishops and everybody else, and we need to consecrate Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, where did this come from? Okay, so this comes from, there was this sighting in Fatima where these children, supposedly the Virgin Mary, appeared to them and gave them these three visions. One of them was a vision of all the souls entering into hell. The other one was a prediction of World War I, World War II, they say, as well as the request to consecrate Russia to Mary, as if, you got to worship Mary. You got to worship. This sounds a little bit like idolatry to me, right? It's a little bit interesting. And if they didn't, like, the third vision was a vision of the popes and all these people, being put to death. So they're doing this they're very rushed in doing this. The reason is because of this belief that so-called prophecy is going to come true and it's going to bring the end of the world, right? Big, terrible war, terrible stuff like that. So they're like, we better do something. I'd like to remind everybody that, in the scriptures, it does say to watch out for people who have the visions and stuff like that. Over the years, I worked in Christian TV. I was the writer there. I'm always very skeptical of people that say the Lord appeared to me or Mary appeared to me, or I'm like, but I really do worship God and I really do seek God and I really want to know God. I'm calling BS. I'm calling baloney on you. I'm calling baloney on you. Bologna. Because you look at the church system. You see how corrupt it is. God doesn't like a corrupt church system. He's called people to be righteous and holy. And yet you look at what the church system has produced. Church system's a little corrupt. They're relying on tricks now. Uh-oh, war's coming. It's looking really bad. We better do something. You see, here's the thing. It's kind of like, we're really corrupt people. Oh, that's right. If we do this vain tradition, God used to like that. If we sacrifice those animals, God used to like that. So we better do something quick. We better do something quick because right now war is looming. This story is found in the book of Samuel. Now, how do I know this? Well, because I'm looking at tridents. And I'm thinking about tridents, and I end up down this rabbit hole where I have everybody telling me things about tridents, okay? Now here, this is really cool. You're gonna like this. Stay with me. I know it sounds goofy. Stay with me because this actually goes somewhere and it ties into something that's quite profound, and I believe it's a message for us all. So a lot of people sent me stuff. People sent me stuff on Twitter. Neil Nove told me on Twitter, you were talking about Aquaman, Jacob, right, with the Trident. Well, Amber Heard did, she was with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp did that movie Dead Men Tell No Tales with the Pirates of the Caribbean. They were after the Trident of Poseidon. So I'm looking into this Trident and I'm going, what is the Trident about, right? Focusing all over about the, Ram, the Aries. We're entering into Aries, this astrological time. And then I think, oh my goodness gracious, they just did this huge thing in Egypt. They did the Return of the Gods. I did videos about this last year, where they did this huge parade in Egypt. And guess where it was? They opened up. What did they open up? They opened up Ram's Road. Take a look. Weird, right? Because we're talking about the Trident and we end up, how do we end up in Egypt? Next thing you know, the ram is symbolic of the deity known as Amun. Amun, this becomes one with, and then you got Amun Ra. This is one of the Egyptian gods, which, by the way, Marduk from ancient Sumeria. Many, many different names. Marduk was known as the sun god. He was associated with the sun. They were worshipped around the same time. You know the whole thing with the system, they worship this stuff. They're into the pyramids and the this, that, and the other. Somebody was sharing pictures of Macron doing all sorts of weird triangle signs. Yeah, but there's no secret societies or people aren't into all that, are there? We have Ishtar. We have Easter. Ishtar comes from Inanna, which is also, these are all kind of like, maybe there's a war going on, right? That's been going on for a long time. This goes back to Sumerian mythology and everything else. But before I get into all that, I really thought that I needed to talk about Pope Francis and this consecration. So I'm looking at the Trident. And I do find it strange that the Trident is associated with Marduk, and that, yes, it has something to do with Nibiru, and yes, all of these things are intertwined somehow, strangely. And I do find it strange that Babylon is coming back to life, as here we're talking about Ishtar, we're talking about Inanna, we're talking about the Queen of Heaven, Mary. You see the connection? I have to be careful doing this now, because I guess I went like this and I went, oh, like that. And someone said, oh, you're doing the all-seeing eye symbolism. That's how I'm don't go like this, because it's like, come on, man. It's so weird. Yeah, Babylon's coming back to life. A New World Monuments Fund project is, they had this donation from the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. And what they're doing is they're opening up the Ishtar Gate, the Easter Gate. The Queen of Heaven's Gate is opening up. Strange, because the Queen of Heaven is also known as Mary. They're all connected. And here you have the consecration of Mary. Strange. You know, all the celebrities, they all dress up like that. Beyonce, all of them. They all put on their headdress and look like the Queen of Heaven. Speaking of Marduk, you got the Dragon of Marduk on the Ishtar Gate. Some people are even saying that UFOs are involved in this war. So like the IB Times put something out about supposedly some general from the Ukraine. I don't know if any of this is true. I just saw it. Said that there's like space aliens are getting involved. Avi Loeb, that guy, and we talked about, remember Oumuamua? He's convinced that we're going to. He's convinced. He told everybody we're gonna meet extraterrestrials. You know, this story with the ETs, it could also be the stories of the fallen angels. You know, they came down. The story of Nibiru is that the Anunnaki, they messed with the genome. They kind of became one with humans. Same thing with the fallen angels. They became one with humans. And they had these children that became giants called the Nephilim. Man, I'm all over the place today, right? I'm just excited because I'm researching tridents. I'm researching this, and I'm like, I know there's something to the trident. And then I'm at the gym today, and as my custom usually is, I like to search the scriptures. So I like go to YouTube and I type in, you know, audio Bible or Bible dramatized, and I look and I see, oh, 1 Samuel, and I think, I haven't listened to 1 Samuel in a while. And I press play as I'm doing the Stairmaster. And then next thing I hear is 3-pronged flesh hook. And I'm like, wow. That's strange. And I immediately stop and I say 3-pronged flesh hook. I'm going to explain what the 3-pronged flesh hook is in a second. But when I heard that, I thought trident. So I immediately looked online and I go, is a trident the same as a 3-pronged flesh hook? It is. That's strange, right? I know there's some kind of a connection to the trident. I know that God's trying to say something. Right? I don't know what it is. And then I'm at the gym, just totally unaware of my surroundings. I'm just going to work out. Boop, boopy doo. Oh, I'll try to be, you know, closer to you, Lord. Let me learn something. Press play. And then it says this. Eli's sons were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord. Now, it was the practice of the priest that whenever the people offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come in with a 3-pronged flesh hook. In his hand, while the meat was being boiled, and would plunge the fork into the pan or the kettle or the pot or the cauldron. And whatever the 3-pronged flesh hook pulled out, even before the fat was burned, the priest would come and say, whatever the 3-pronged flesh hook brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is how they treated all the Israelites who came to Shiloh. But even before the fat was burned, the priest's servants would come and say to the person who was sacrificing, give the priest some meat to roast. He won't accept boiled meat from you, but only raw. If the priest said to him, let the fat be burned first and then take what you want, the servant would answer, no, hand it over. If you don't, I'll take it by force. The sin of the young man was very great in the Lord's sight. The sin of the young man was very great in their sight, and it had to do with a 3-pronged flesh hook. Now, doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm going to make it make sense. Give me a second. Here we see the symbol of the 3-pronged flesh hook. Custom was to use it with the sacrifice, but the priests, they got greedy. They got greedy, and they just didn't do it. They didn't care. They just did what was good for them in their eyes. This is where it gets weird. This is where it has to do with, because you look at the Catholic Church, you look at the religious system today, right? You have the pontiff who's tweeting out about how, oh, we must do this as if we're going to concert, everybody prays. That's going to take care of the fact that we've been wicked for so long. We've done horrible things to children, no less. So I immediately, my ears are pricked. Okay, so Samuel is this prophet. What had happened was you had Eli was the prophet of the day, the priest of the day, and Hannah, you probably heard the story of Hannah, was this woman who was barren. She wanted to have a kid. She said, I dedicate it to the Lord. I'll give it to you as soon as I give birth. And the Lord granted this and gave this barren woman Samuel. Samuel, who was then taken by Eli. Eli, who then raised Samuel. Samuel, who becomes obviously the one who anoints King Saul, who anoints King David. Big prophet. Big prophet, because God had said he saw the prophets of the land. He saw the religious peoples, the sons of Eli, the sons of Belial. The children of that system, they turned out to be so corrupt, so wicked. It would be like God looking at the religious system today. It's like all the children you produced are foul in my sight, horrible in my sight. Samuel comes in and like God speaks to him and says, come here, Samuel. And Samuel doesn't know any better because he's young. I tweeted about this. By the way, if you're on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. Will you please go in the links below. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I have all the links. Please, I need you all to be connected to me because you're not going to be notified unless you're connected to me. On Telegram, too, if you have Telegram, I tell people about the shows when they're coming out so you don't miss it because you can't really count on YouTube, which is why it's so important to like and share and help out the channel. So you got back in the day, you got this little guy, Samuel, who's growing up. God has a big plan for him. He's, listening to Eli, and God speaks out to him. What does he do? He goes to Eli. He thinks that Eli called for him. See, that's the problem. A lot of people, when God calls them right off the bat, they think that the answer is going to be found, oh, I better go to church. I better go to a religious system. I got to listen there because God wants to speak to me, so I got to go to Eli. And we saw that God wasn't too thrilled with Eli's kids. Samuel hears from God again, goes back again. Finally, Eli's like, I think that the Lord's calling you, and next time you hear from God, just say, here I am, speak. You don't need to go to this place or that. I've said this on the channel a long time. Right? Jacob's well, you know the story. If you come here, to get your spiritual juice, this is flowing, and you want to get that life that comes with the knowledge of Christ, that's great. But when you leave, you're going to thirst again. But Christ sits at this well. You can follow Christ for yourself. You can ask for the truth no matter what the cost. You don't need me. I mean, come back for the shows, the encouragement and everything else, but you need to do the work. You don't need to come to me to hear from God. God calls you. You're going to go, hey, Jacob, did you call me? No, you're going to go to God. Say, what do you want, Lord? Speak, I'm listening. Your servant is ready. That's what Samuel did. Then God tells Samuel, this is what's going to happen. I'm done with this system. I'm done with these religious games. Okay, and why? Because of a three-pronged flesh hook, a trident. What are the odds? Here we have stuff going on in the world today. Here we have the religious system consecrating the Queen of Heaven, who's connected to all of this stuff tied in together. Strange. God says, that's it. From now on, people are going to hear from the word of Samuel. And then, in the next chapter, what happens? An army is amassing the Philistines. And Israel is like, we got to go off. We got to meet them. It's kind of like what's happening right now. We got to go. We got to take care of this. Right? So what do? They see how big the army is, and they get nervous. So what do the priests do and everything else? They're like, let's get the Ark of the Covenant. It's like, war's coming. We better bring out the Ark of the Covenant, because then we'll be protected. Right? They weren't repenting and being kind, and they were being corrupt in the sight of the Lord, and they thought, oh, yeah, we'll just do what we used to do. We'll just do little traditions. We'll just consecrate the Virgin Mary. We'll just consecrate the Queen of Heaven. That'll do the trick, right? That's not going to do the trick. I want to tell you all. So you heard it here first. It's not going to work. It didn't work for the children of Eli either. They ended up dead. That was a prophecy against them. They ended up dead. Not just that, the Ark of the Covenant, which was supposed to contain the Spirit of the living God, was stolen by the Philistines. They lost possession of it. God is in charge of everything. It's all happening. Trident, three-pronged flesh hook, connected to the story of Fatima in this vision, which I think is a bunch of hogwash. I know that they were like, the story gets grander and grander as the years go. Let me tell you something. People that have these great stories, Did I ever come on here and tell you the Lord spoke to me? I saw the Lord. I was standing in the field, and the Lord opened and cracked open the heavens, and they make it all that. When God speaks, you don't know where it's coming from. Samuel, who was anointed to be prophet, he didn't even know. He went to Eli. He was like, he thought the priest. He's like, oh, I know God's talking to me. What is it? You? Are you the one that's talking to me? God speaks in a still, quiet voice. I'm like, what's the trident, Lord? What's the trident? What's the trident? What do I get? I get nothing. Then I go to the gym. I'm all quiet, not even thinking, just listening, enjoying. And then it was like, foo, 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 foo. 3-pronged flesh hook. And I'm like, I got to listen to the rest of this story. And it has to do with an invading army coming against Israel. And guess what happens? Not good for Israel. Not good for Israel. But, you know, in the end, the Dagon, the god, the fish god, because what happened was the Philistines had this other god. They took the Ark of the Covenant, they put it in the same place where Dagon is, and he ends up getting his head lopped off and his hand lopped off. God's going to take care of all these false gods that they have in the land. You can have as many parades as you want in Egypt, talk about the gods returning, you know. You have as many celebrations, pagan celebrations, you do as many hand signs and all that as you want. In the end, God has his say, and it's God that's speaking today. So, repent, return to the Lord, and know that God right now is going to reveal corruption. God is doing it all. I said that we were going to enter into a time that was going to be very difficult. I said towards the back half of this 3.5 years, I said it's going to get worse. It's going to get crazier. I told you back in the day when Jacob was around, when he got a little bit older, famine was in the land. We already hear Biden talking about shortages of food. We know it's going in that direction. Don't put your faith in the system. Don't think consecrating Mary is going to do the trick. Just reach out to the Lord. Say, Lord, help me. God hasn't forsaken you. He hasn't left us. He's left the system. Don't be a child of the religious system. Be a child of the living God. And that is your freedom. I love each and every one of you. I hope that this encouraged you a little bit. And I know I'll get that other show out to you shortly. But it seems like these things are they're important. So I hope that it blessed you. Do me a favor, share the channel around, do the liking thing, and if you want to get yourself a Buckle Up shirt or an I Am a Witness shirt or any of that stuff, links are in the description. You want to get yourself a copy of the novel. You don't have to just get it at Amazon. I have all the links for Amazon down there. You can get it anywhere you want. The novel, which I believe is a big thing, I actually put on Twitter that people will retweet so that like Stephen Furtick, he's a big name dude, right? A lot of people have a problem with him because he's a big name dude. I just found him a little while ago. And I got to tell you, when I work out, I like to listen to this guy. This guy can preach, and I'm encouraged. Many times I've been encouraged. I listen to Christian music on Pandora, and many times his music comes up, and he has these songs about the God of Jacob, which encourages me. So Holly Furtick's got this book club. So I'm like, I was like, retweet it. So Holly decides I need help getting my book out there. The problem is this religious system. Even though I was in it, I was like the head writer for the largest Christian network in the world. Even though I was in it, they got a problem with this. They got a problem with this. You know, it's like I don't do things the way they do them. So that's all. In any event, get yourself a copy. Do what you can to help the channel out. Have the best day ever. Give a hug to somebody that you haven't hugged. Tell people you love them. Forgive. Move on. All right? And stop being scared, because the Spirit of the Lord is here. This is the day of the Lord. Scripture says it's scary, it's dark, it's gloomy. I get it, but it's also a time to rejoice. So rejoice, people, because the Trident is a 3-pronged flesh hook. After all, I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
September 10th. Mars hangs closer to the Earth than it has in 6,000 years. Like the light that led men from the east to a child in a manger, it could well be a sign of good things to come. Thomas James shall be his name. The world will change because of him. In the small town of Bethel, in a time not unlike our own, a child with a great purpose is born. Years later, alienated by his peers and abused, Thomas suffers a devastating loss. When it appears he has nothing left to live for in the world, this is when his true calling begins. While trying to escape the sinister powers that be, a terrifying vision haunts him. Miraculous events seem to follow the peculiar young man as he struggles to come to terms with what he was born to do. The stage is set. The time is at hand. The truth will rise and a revolution will begin. The startling revelation of who Thomas James is, truly, will change the lives of those around him and set off a chain of events long ago foretold. There is more to this novel than one might think. Inside these pages hides a treasure just waiting to be discovered. So if you've ever wondered if there's more to life, or why it is we suffer, then this story will not only captivate you, it may just open your eyes to a truth that could set you free. Find out what is in us all that makes us heed the calling.